Let's discuss this, and you can talk about shopping for the best number and the Packers. 8-9 last year, Jared. You know, the loss late to my Lions with the playoffs on the line wasn't great. Week 1 opener for Green Bay at Chicago. By the way, that number opened. Chicago 2.5 got hit up to 3, back down to 2.5 where it sits currently. But we should start with an overview on the Packers. Win total set at 7.5. I just looked at DraftKings. It's $1.20 if you want to go over. I think it's a sigh of relief for the organization. I think it's a sigh of relief for the fan base. Frankly, Jared, relationships are hard. And, you know, jeopardy, darkness retreats. Is he going to retire? The what ifs with Aaron Rodgers were just perpetual. And it's finally time to move on. First off, he's going to be 40 in December. So you've got to move on eventually. And here comes Jordan Love. First round draft pick in 2020. Of course, 1 career start, 83 passes in the NFL. So what do we have with Love? That's essentially what you're banking on, because it's a good roster. We can delve into the roster a little bit, but why don't we start just with an overview? I think that was a disappointing 8-win season, obviously, last year. LaFleur's been awesome, frankly, with the Packers in his time, specifically winning straight up in ATS at Lambeau, but he's 47-19. He's 18-1 in the Coach of the Year market, which we can discuss. But let's start with Love and start with the number at 7.5 on the Packers regular season.
Yeah, I think this all revolves around the quarterback. And all I've heard all offseason from a lot of really smart people is, you know, the Jets number has moved down considerably with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are overvalued. They have Aaron Rodgers now. It's moved too much. Well, if that's true, well, then don't you think the inverse also maybe is true? If the Jets are overvalued with Aaron Rodgers, maybe the Packers undervalued without him. Because if one player is going to move that much, and I remember when Aaron Rodgers was 2 seasons ago, Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Green Bay was on the road facing the Chiefs. The line moved over a touchdown from Rodgers to Love. Love started that game and covered that game in Kansas City. And I'm not going to glean anything from that one game, but what I'm trying to point out is this is all about a number. To me, the rest of the roster is Super Bowl ready. I mean, they have studs at every single level. Getting Rashawn Gary back off the PUP is huge. Obviously, Kenny Clark inside, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. I love the secondary. Alexander and Douglas, I think, can play off of each other. Alexander's a shutdown guy. Rasul Douglas is a pretty darn good number 2. They drafted Lucas Van Ness in the first round, hopefully to ramp up that pass rush. So I think the defense is set. The offensive line needs to stay healthy. We've talked about this for pretty much every year. Bakhtiari and Jenkins, those 2 guys at the bookend spots have to stay healthy. If they do, then the question, all of the pressure falls on the shoulders of Jordan Love. He's looked good in the preseason. I don't want to overreact to that, but I don't think we should underreact to it because he has all of that weight on his shoulders, and he has not shown, and again, it is preseason, so maybe the pressure isn't as high as it will be week 1 in Chicago. But to me, the pressure's still pretty high right now because they treat the preseason in Green Bay. They ride the bikes down the stadium. It's a pretty big deal, and he's handled it pretty well so far. So if I think the sports books, which to me, pretty hard for them to quantify how good Jordan Love is and how big of a drop-off it is from Rodgers to Love, if the drop-off is not as severe as we originally think, well, then the Packers' number is grossly undervalued because the rest of the roster, I think, is pretty ready to win right now.
Totally agree. 7.5. I think you got $1.22 at the book you shop.
Yes.
4-1 in division. I agree with what Jared said. And Big Guy, I'll come to you on Love. I think what alleviates some of the pressure on Love, boys, is exactly what Jared said. When healthy by any metric, that offensive front is top 10, specifically run blocking. That brings us to more alleviation for Jordan Love and the 1-2 punch. I'm not a huge A.J. Dillon guy, but I am a big Aaron Jones guy. That is a good 1-2 punch. They were 6-1 straight up, 6-1 ATS when they rushed for 115 yards plus last year. They are going to rely on that offensive front. They will rely on the run to help out the quarterback. That's essentially, you know, a third-year rookie, if you want to look at it that way. Christian Watson in his last 8 games was ridiculous. 7 touchdowns, 523 through the air. A big play guy, Romeo Doubs, the rookies and Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrove at tight end. Like, the offense should be very good. My issue with this team, and it's a defensive disaster the last 2 years, and it comes down to one name, and that's Joe Barry. The idea that they brought him back for year 3, his resume is trifling. They've underachieved the 2 years that Barry's been there as a defensive coordinator. 27th in EPA allowed, 20th in defensive DVOA overall at Football Outsiders. Just to me, that's an issue with this team, an underachieving defense because of frankly, Jared, defensive coordinators, it's overmatched, and LaFleur brought him back.
It's very fair. And he has been, I would say, if you're watching the Packers games throughout the course of the last few seasons, he's the guy that makes you pull your hair out. I think my guess is this is going to be a lower volume passing offense. LaFleur, let me check this numbers because I wrote this down. Over the last 2 seasons, Matt LaFleur's had the slowest paced offense in the league. So They don't throw a lot on first down. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers probably got them in and out of some things last year on early downs that maybe LaFleur didn't call. My guess is it'll be a little more paint by numbers, especially early in the year. I like the week 5 or the week 6 bye. I like the fact that Jordan Love gets a few games to mix it up against, let's call it average competition. I don't think there's any game in the first 5 that you're like, yeah, the Packers can't win that game. Impossible, no chance. I think they're going to be in those first 5 games, and then you get to sit back and assess. We'll see what that does later in the year when I think most teams, most veteran guys prefer the bye to be week 10 or later to give them a break as they head into the postseason. But I don't think it's that much of a negative thing for Jordan Love to be able to play 5 games in the league and then take a week off and kind of watch. So, listen, this team won 8 games last year, and it was an underachieving season from most of their key players, including the quarterback. If the sportsbooks have not properly quantified how much Jordan Love can grasp this offense, this number will move quickly. And I'll give you a great example. To me, if you're going to bet over 7.5 wins on the Packers, you should also be very comfortable with betting week 1 money line against the Bears, as an underdog. And to me, I'm going to make that bet as well because I think that's a swing game. If they win that game, they're going over 7.5 wins. First of all, they get one underdog win out of there, right out of the gate. And 2, I think that will tilt the numbers to a point where the Packers, in some of those toss-up games down the stretch, if they show up week 1 and are impressive on the road, a lot of those toss-up numbers are going to start skewing in Green Bay's favor. So the power ratings are going to go towards Green Bay pretty quickly if they win week 1 as an underdog because the sports books are going to have to catch up pretty quickly because we don't have any data on Jordan Love. We don't know what he's going to look like. But if he looks good, now the floor is low too, but I think the ceiling is pretty high if Jordan Love can make up some ground pretty quick.
It's a talented roster. I've got some trivia for you two.
Oh boy.
Here coming up in just a bit. But just quickly, interesting, I was looking through the numbers throughout the season. 12 of 17 for the Packers fall between laying 3 and taking 3. So you've got the bookmakers like, yeah, you tell us. 7.5 on the season win total. But again, 12 of the 17 right now, you look ahead over the 17 weeks, they're either laying 3 or catching 3 in between that number. By the way, boys, Dustin, we'll start with you. The transition from Favre to Rodgers, now a transition from Rodgers to Love. What was Aaron Rodgers' first-year record?
Ooh. As a starter?
Yes, sir.
I feel like he came out of the gates hot, but I'm probably wrong about that. Maybe that was filling. That might have been filling. I think that was filling in for Favre in like spot starts. But when he officially became the starter, 16 games. I bet he only won probably like 7 or 8 games. 7. I'll say 7.
What year was it? Can I buy a vowel here? What year was it?
Oh God,
I can look that up for
2009?
you.
I was gonna say 08 or 09.
You want to take a stab at it, Jared?
I would say 7 and 9.
He was 6 and 10. So Dustin, you were about to say 6. I think you did say 6. Jared,
we're both
you're
right
very
on
close
it.
as well.
Yeah, we're both right on it.
But it's a transition, is my point.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think 8 wins is not a stretch, and you see the juice on the over. So I don't disagree with you there. And I think it was a very underwhelming 8-win season last year.
Yeah.
Rodgers was completely disengaged.
Yep.
That's how he is. He's super moody. You've got a completely motivated quarterback this year. But anybody, we've got a lot of quarterback gurus that I'm hearing in sports betting broadcasts and sports radio broadcasts. If anybody thinks they know what they're getting from Jordan Love, see? That's how unknown he is. If you think you know what you're getting from Jordan Love this year, big guy, you're freaking tripping.
No, I look, I'm pretty down heading into the year, but I'm willing to admit I could be wrong on my projection of him, especially because this offense may not ask him to do the things I'm assuming a Packers offense used to do because Rodgers' attempts per game were way down over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
They have to take the pressure off him. Again, anybody that thinks they know what you're getting with Jordan Love, no chance.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.